welcome for everybody. Boy, this is a great group. What a great day to be doing something like this. I mean, it's raining, right? So you can't be out in your garden. You can't be doing anything else like that. So how many of you guys have come to one of these events before? All right, good. So you know that it's a lot of fun and we're going to be doing a lot of good things. How many have ever heard me speak before? None of you? Wow. Oh, a couple down in the front. Okay. So I just need to make sure. Yeah, there we go. So if that's the case, then let me tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do. So my name is Dr. Sherri Tenpenny. I am probably known as the international expert on vaccine injuries and problems associated with vaccines. I've been involved with this for 17 years and about 30,000 hours of my life in terms of research and speaking and traveling around the world giving talks like this. My first career was as a board-certified emergency physician. I was the director of an ER for 12 years. Then I moved to Cleveland, Ohio in 1996, and I opened an integrative medicine practice for which I'm always proud to say we've had people from all 50 states and about 17 foreign countries to come to our clinic to get well and get off their pharmaceutical drugs. So I got involved with this serendipitously, like a lot of things do. I got a notification in the mail in September of 2000 from the National Vaccine Information Center meeting in Washington, D.C. And it was supposed to be in September of that year, and it was really inconvenient for me to go. And I actually went so far as to call them and say, when is your next meeting? Because I don't think I can come this time. And they said, well, we're a small nonprofit. We're not sure we're going to have another one. We said, okay, so every time I went to throw that brochure away off my kitchen counter, it just kind of made its way back onto the kitchen counter. So I was single at the time, and I thought, oh, I know. This is it, Lord. This is where I'm supposed to be to meet the guy. So I went down to so I made a reservation. I went down to the meeting, and it wasn't about the guy. It was about the topic. And I sat through 4 days of nonstop lectures, which I think it was the only conference I've ever been to in my entire life that I sat through all of the lectures and took copious notes and heard researchers and PhDs and doctors and parents talk about vaccines and vaccine injuries. There was about 700 people in that conference, a lot of people that were there with their vaccine-injured children in wheelchairs, and all I could think of is, while I was there, was how did I miss this as part of my education as a physician? You know, I've been in medicine at that time for 15 years. I was the director of an ER. I gave out tetanus shots like they were some special kind of candy. I've had my integrative medicine practice now for almost 5 years. And I grew up in a chiropractic family, 3 generations of chiropractors. I wasn't vaccinated as a kid. None of my cousins or any of their kids were vaccinated, so it was never on my radar because I had age-appropriate measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, and I had pertussis twice. And I'm 59 and here to talk about it. Nobody died. And so we get so terrorized into these infections that we need to change the language about that because we call them diseases. And everybody gets all weirded out and scared like somebody's going to die over these normal childhood infections that were supposed to come at age-appropriate levels, somewhere mostly between the ages of 6 and 9, that left you with a lifetime of immunity, not only so that you could be healthy as you went into your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, but that you could pass that health on to your children. So that's how I got involved with this. And after that meeting, I went home and I started saying, well, where do you start? Where do I start looking at this? I know, I'll start with the CDC. So I started going to the CDC documents and read the general recommendations of vaccination, the 1998 version of that, which was such a poorly written paper and such poor documentation. It was a 42-page paper. I still have it, by the way. And I thought, this can't be what this entire industry is built on. This really can't be it. So from there, I started reading all of the mainstream medical literature, the Pediatric Infectious Disease Journal, Vaccine, JAMA, New England Journal of Medicine, and it's all in there. The problems associated with vaccines are in the mainstream medical journals. Physicians just choose to flip right by it because it isn't anything they're interested in reading. So that's how I kind of came to this. And each thing that I read, it became almost like an addiction because I kept thinking, I must be missing something. What am I missing? Where is this? Why can't I find why this is so important? And the deeper down the rabbit hole I went and the more information that I found, the more shocking it was to me. And I went back to Kathy Williams, who's one of the co-founders of the National Vaccine Information Center, and said, surely if people just knew how vile that stuff was that's coming through the vial, they would like stop and run the opposite direction so fast it looked like the Roadrunner, like beep, beep, psh, be gone. We would implode this industry in like a nanosecond once people understood that they were cells from aborted fetal tissue and aluminum and mercury and formaldehyde and stray viruses that can cause cancer in these things they're given to their children. Surely as soon as they know that, it will stop. Well, 17 years later, we have more vaccines than ever. We have mandates breathing down our neck. We want everybody in the government to take away our rights. So that's why I do this. And that's why, when Patrick heard me talk, and I spoke at his meeting last year, he said he wanted me to come up and give this information to all of you on this lecture on Vaccines 101. Because we want to try to boil it down into bite-sized pieces, which, by the way, they're going to be passing around a clipboard for you guys. If you want to be part of my email list and the information we sent out, please just put your name and your email list in a way that, or your email, in a way that I can actually read it, because it doesn't do any good to write it down if I put an R and it's supposed to be an S into my database. So, because we're pretty active. My Facebook page has 217,000 people. We just started a course called Mastering Vaccine Info, foundational course in online training that we've got almost 100 people enrolled in that. It will reopen for enrollment in March. If you want to be on the waiting list for that, let me know. Because it goes through everything. It goes through everything in a way that's bite-sized pieces, about 20 minutes of content, and then a Thursday night Facebook Live discussion group to teach you how to take the language in those modules to become a confident parent, an intelligent leader in your home and your community, and an articulate activist. And that's what we're trying to train everybody to do. So let's get started with this. There are some basic assumptions behind the entire industry of vaccination. In fact, when I got started with this in September of 2000, if you think about the pharmaceutical industry as like a big pie diagram, and a piece of the pie is like cancer drugs, hypertension drugs, all these different drugs that they do, which is all their book of business, their lines of things that they market and sell. At that point in time, the little teeny tiny pie diagram of the vaccine industry was about a $5 billion a year industry. Now they're approaching $54 billion. And why is that so important to know? It's because vaccines, if you vaccinate 100 people, at least 50% of them are going to have a serious side effect. Then you get taken to all of these doctors and all of these tests to find out that, was it the vaccine? Probably not. It was because you had this underlying pathology that was just going to automatically pop up just exactly when you got the vaccine. And then they've got this entire $1 trillion book of business to sell you all these drugs to manage the side effects that you just got from the vaccines. So the vaccines are actually the economical pharmaceutical industry's loss leader. How many of you guys in here have businesses? Or your husband does, or whatever, you have businesses. So you know what a loss leader is, right? A loss leader is like, I'm going to give away a t-shirt for free. It says on the door, on the sign on your door, free t-shirt, come inside. So you get people to come in for the free t-shirt, so while they're in your door, you can sell them the $1,000 Armani suit. Well, the vaccines are the economic loss leader. Do it for free, mandate it, get your flu shot at every Walgreens, Walmart, every grocery store. I got a thing the other day, they took a picture of it, it said, if you get your flu shot today at Giant Eagle, we'll give you 10% off your groceries. So everywhere, they're pounding people with these vaccines. It's their economic loss leader. It doesn't cost them anything, it costs them pennies. And then they've got a $1 trillion book of business to sell you once you start having side effects. asthma, allergies, eczema, ADD, ADHD, ear infections in kids, insulin-dependent diabetes, autoimmune diseases. They have an entire book now, textbook, on vaccines and autoimmune diseases. All of those things start happening, so now we can drive, it's the driver of the entire industry. And these are some of the assumptions, that vaccines are safe. We're gonna go through that in a little more detail. That vaccines are effective, meaning they protect you and keep you from getting sick. So that we as physicians and you as a consumer, when you hear the word effective, automatically goes into your head, you think, oh, that keeps me from getting sick. That's not what effective means in the vaccine industry. Vaccines have very few side effects, except for the fact that the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program that went into effect in 1986 and the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System has year to date been paid out over $3.2 billion in vaccine injury claims through the government program, and they estimate that's less than 10% of people who've actually been injured. $3.2 billion in vaccine injuries. They are, and every time you read any sort of a paper, or you hear anybody on the pro-vaccine advocate side, or you hear anybody in the government talk about vaccines, this is what they always say, that they're the most significant public health advances of the 21st century. After all, we saved the world from smallpox and polio, didn't we? We go into that in great detail in my course, because actually we didn't. And we've spent billions of dollars for nothing on this polio eradication, but that's another talk for another day. So what about our vaccine safe? And what is the meaning of a safe vaccine? Well, it's not really what you think. That the Webster's Dictionary of safe says, giving protection, which is what we think it should be. You know, if you have a security system in your house, it keeps you safe. Involving no risk. No risk. Every package insert on every vaccine talks about the risk of vaccination. They are trustworthy and unable to cause trouble or damage. Well, we've already said that Vaccine Injury Compensation Program has paid out $3.2 billion, and all of these vaccine injuries that compound one upon each other creates the business driver for the pharmaceutical industry, so we know that they cause damage. So by definition, they break the definition of what safe is supposed to be. So the real problem then comes with vaccine safety studies. How do they come to the conclusion that they can put in a package insert, which is specifically designed for information for your doctor, that your doctor is supposed to know? How do they design these studies and come to the conclusion that they are safe? Well, there's 4 specific problems. And problem number 1 is that safety studies do not use a true placebo group. And if you take anything away from this talk today, I want you to remember this. Because in conventional medicine, the double-blind, placebo-controlled study is the gold standard for safety. If they're bringing to market, say, a new medication for, say, hypertension, they would give you guys over here the real drug, and you guys over here the sugar pill. And they would want to see of the real drug, compared to the sugar pill, what were the levels of side effects? What kind of reactions did people have? Did it really bring down your blood pressure as compared to this group over here that just got the sugar pill? And when they double blind it, what that actually means is that the person that you come in to see to participate in the study, when I give you a pill or I give you a pill, I don't know whether I'm giving you the real drug or if I'm giving you the sugar pill. I'm just giving you a pill and then keeping track of your symptoms. So that's a double-blind study. I don't know which of you are getting what. And placebo means it's compared to something that's totally inert. In vaccine studies, they never use a true placebo. And that started all the way back with the polio trials back in 1954 when they did this mass vaccination of the Salk injectable polio vaccine, and they said it was really unethical to give these people a vaccine and to give you nothing if we have to give a shot. So one of the arms of the trial actually gave the placebo as a tetanus shot. So it started way back when that if you're going to get a shot, you ought to have something of value. And so then we get the side effects of the polio vaccine compared to the side effects of the tetanus shot. How can we, and if this has the same amount of side effects as this, then we say it has the same amount of side effects and reactions as the placebo, which was another vaccine. That's not a placebo. And now in the package inserts, what they don't even call it, even try to get away with calling it a placebo anymore. What they call this tetanus shot, this other one that they give you, they call it a comparator. We're going to compare the side effects of the new vaccine compared to the side effects of a vaccine that we already know what those side effects are supposed to be. And if the new vaccine has the same amount of side effects as one that we know is supposed to be there, then we say this new one is safe. There's no true placebo ever. And when I go to talk to doctors and nurses that are in the hospital and they don't have any of this information, when I drop that little factoid of saying that there is no true placebo used when they define safety in a safety trial, I would see it, it's kind of like a cartoon. It's like their head goes like an eggshell. Like, what do you mean? That's the gold standard for all investigational medicine. Not in the vaccine world, it's not. What they use instead, because they consider it unethical to give a vaccine to one group and hold from another group, therefore the placebo should have some benefit. It should be a vaccine. So can you see already where the whole idea that vaccines are safe starts to fall apart from the implementation of the safety studies? They've never really had a safety study. Problem number 2 is that studies don't use inert substances as a placebo. Like a sugar pill is inert. Well, if we're going to compare one vaccine to another vaccine, is this vaccine over here inert? No, because it has its own side effect profile. So the placebo used is often another vaccine, like I said, with a known safety profile. If the experimental vaccine has the same number and types of effects as the placebo vaccine, then the experimental vaccine is said to be safe as placebo. And you see that in all the package inserts. You see that in the published medical literature, in the Pediatric Infectious Disease Journal, or in JAMA, or in the England Journal. They'll say, it was safe as placebo. Then you dig through the study to try to find out what the placebo was. Sometimes they list it and sometimes they don't. Sometimes you have to go to the FDA and look at the original trials to find out what the placebo was. But most of the time, it was another vaccine. Another example is that in the Gardasil trials, that they actually used an injection of aluminum as the placebo. Gardasil has, well, I used to say has the highest amount of aluminum of any vaccine, but there's new vaccines that have come out that have larger amounts of aluminum. The Gardasil 4 that came out in 2006 had 250 micrograms of aluminum. Now Gardasil 9 that came out a couple of years ago and has become the one that they give everyone around the world has 500 micrograms of aluminum. And we're going to see in a few minutes that the new meningitis B vaccine has 1,500 micrograms of aluminum, which is a big deal. So this is where in Gardasil, you know what Gardasil is? Gardasil is the vaccine that they want to give all the girls to say one less girl. Yeah, when they say one less girl, what goes in my mind is one less girl able to have children in the future is what the rest of that sentence should be. Because Gardasil has been shown to cause testicular atrophy in male mice and stop periods and atrophy of the uterus in female mice. So Gardasil is this vaccine that was only tested on 12,000 girls before they started administering it to 9 to 12-year-old girls of age back in 2006. Most vaccine clinical trials on an international basis have tens of thousands of people. This one was only tested on 12,000. They were followed for only 6 months, when in vaccine trials, they usually follow things for about 4 years, and in medication trials, they follow them for longer than that. The observation for adverse events was 15 days. How long does it take for an autoimmune reaction to form? Months. They only followed this because all they were looking for was acute allergic reactions, swollen arm, sick to their stomach, headache. They only followed it for 15 days. The average age for developing cervical cancer is somewhere between 38 and 42, and the placebo that was used was a shot of aluminum, and Gardasil has aluminum in it. So each Gardasil dose has 225 micrograms of aluminum, and when about 25% experienced the injection and pain after the Gardasil, and about 16% had pain after the shot of aluminum, the conclusion was Gardasil was declared to be as safe as the placebo, which is pretty common. I mean, this is just one example that I could give you of the 56 vaccines that are currently approved in the US market, and there are almost 310 in the developmental pipeline. Now, some of the vaccines in the developmental pipeline are specific indicators. A lot of them are in the cancer segment because what they're trying to do is come up with DNA vaccines to manipulate your DNA and genetics. Nothing could go wrong with that, right? Nothing could possibly go wrong with a DNA vaccine to change your genetics permanently and then pass that on to your children. But all of the vaccines, and then they are coming up with specific indicator vaccines. Like there's a vaccine under development for cocaine addiction, one for hypertension, one for periodontal disease. So they're trying to eliminate dentists? I mean, I don't know. But these are the sorts of things that are in development down the way. And so this was the vaccine that came to market that currently there are 7 countries around the world that are about to ban the use of Gardasil and the international equivalent, which is called Cervarix, because of all the deaths and chronic long-term disability that's being caused by this vaccine. So if you've got kids that are coming up, teenagers, please get educated about this vaccine. And if there were any of them that you were going to refuse, I mean, in my opinion, that you should refuse all of them. But if you were going to refuse any, absolutely do not allow your kids to get this vaccine. Because they're giving it to boys now, too. They started that about 5 years ago, primarily because they wanted to double their market share. They felt like they were missing out on half the population. And because we know that those dirty little 9-year-old boys are going to be having sex with those promiscuous 9-year-old girls, and they're going to be sharing their HPV viruses back and forth. Because that's the age group that you have to give this, because if you give it after you've had intercourse, it doesn't work. 100% of the female population, well, let me say that again. They estimate somewhere between around 98% of the entire female population has an HPV infection sometime in their life. I mean, the cervix is an external organ, right? It's like your nose. It's an external organ. And about 98% of people actually have that infection sometime in their life. And somewhere close to 97.5% of people who have the infection clear it in 2 years or less. So we're actually giving a vaccine because less than 2% of all humanity gets this vaccine and it doesn't, or gets the virus, and it doesn't go away within 2 years. And maybe not causes cancer, but we're going to vaccinate the entire global population and destroy the lives of hundreds, if not thousands, of teenagers for really something that can be prevented with a pap smear. I know, this is supposed to be like a celebration, right? Isn't this kind of like heavy? Remember, Patrick Vitaby here, right? So we got to keep this a little bit light. So here's the slide I was telling you. This is all the different concentrations of aluminum now. And we know that aluminum causes Alzheimer's. We're pretty sure that aluminum contributes to other types of neurological conditions. Aluminum is, once it's injected, it stays in the muscle for an extended period of time, and it's really not cleared from the body. So poison for poison, in the last decade, many studies in animal models have repeatedly demonstrated that aluminum can inflict immune-mediated diseases, autoimmune, neurological, and skin disorders. But yet we've got all of those vaccines that have aluminum in them, including the hepatitis B vaccine that's given at birth. So if you get a vitamin K shot and a hepatitis B vaccine at birth, you get 330 micrograms of aluminum injected into your baby before they're 2 days old. And so then if they have problems down the road, how do you know? Because now the doctors will say, well, they were just born that way. Were they? Or was it all that gunk that you injected into them as soon as they landed on the planet? So, now what about a few more problems with social study, or with safety studies. So far we've said what? There's no placebo. They don't use an inert substance. Problem number 3, vaccine trials usually include 3 injections to create an antibody response. So they give the first one, they say that primes the pump. The second one locks in immunity. And the third one, we want to take those antibodies to the moon. We want to make them sure that we make them as high as we possibly can because they all degrade and go away with time because it's false, fake immunity. It's not even immunity. It's vaccination. It's not giving your kids or you an immune response. It's injecting foreign matter into your body to create an antibody that we somehow think is going to protect you, which it doesn't. So the vaccine trials, the babies experience the side effects after the first dose. He or she is dropped out from the trial, and the data is analyzed on those that are remaining in the trial at the end. And the negative consequences of side effects are left out. So let's boil that down into some really simple terms. Let's say that there were 1,000 babies in this clinical trial. And after the first vaccine, 100 of them dropped out because of side effects. And after the second vaccine, another 100 dropped out because of side effects. And after the third vaccine, another 100 of them dropped out because of side effects. When they look at the results and they look at the safety of this particular vaccine, they do the analysis on the 700 that were left. They don't even talk about the other 300 that dropped out, except to say study investigators feel that none of the side effects were attributable to the vaccines. None of the side effects were attributable to the vaccines for any of those 300 that dropped out. And so with a stroke of a pen in any vaccine safety or efficacy study, they just wipe it out. Gone, deleted, hit the cutting room floor, does not apply. And then they look at the rest of the analysis and say, well, it was as safe as placebo. So now we go to stage 4 clinical trials. Stage 1 is bringing it to market. Stage 2 is small trials. Stage 3 is those 1,000 babies we talked about. Now we just release it on humanity. That's stage 4 clinical trials. And they call it post-marketing surveillance to see how many people die or have serious consequences once we've unleashed it on humanity. And then everybody that reports a side effect or a problem, they go, well, we don't know if we can trust that report. It was just spontaneously reported, and maybe they were lying. Maybe it had nothing to do with the vaccine, so it's all negated. Anything that is not just safe and effective is just one way or another deleted from the entire industry. So what was problem number 3? They only analyze when people drop out, side effects, they aren't taken into consideration. And problem number 4, which I think is also a really serious complication, is when they set up a clinical trial, they only enroll healthy children or healthy adults. I mean, if you are a child and you have asthma, allergies, seizure disorders, autoimmune problems, you're not allowed into the vaccine study. You're not allowed in there. Same thing as if you're an adult. So you have to be like a healthy adult and no medications, no underlying conditions that we know of. So now we'll do the studies on you. So children with chronic illnesses are excluded, even though those are the children who are most advocated to receive the vaccine after it comes to market, or the adult that's most advocated to receive it. So if your children have, say, asthma, and they were excluded completely from this new vaccine, say a new flu shot, once that new flu shot gets approved, your pediatrician will hammer you over the head to give your kid with asthma this new shot because, oh my God, you can't let them get sick. And so if you get this vaccine, it's going to keep them from getting sick. And they are the most susceptible because they do have an underlying condition, even though the clinical trials never included any of those kids to begin with. So this is just one example. This was Prevnar 7. They now have Prevnar 13. So if you get a Prevnar 13 shot, that's like getting 13 vaccines in one needle. And you get 5 of those at 2, 4, 6 months, 1 year, and they sometimes give a booster at 5 years of age. And this is what it says right from the study, right? Healthy infants were randomized 1-to-1, meaning you had 800 healthy kids and you've divided them into 2 groups to receive either Prevnar 7 or a meningitis C vaccine. There's that comparator of another vaccine to get it at 2, 4, 6 months and somewhere between 12 and 15 months of age. Children with sickle cell, known immunodeficiency, and any serious chronic progressive disease, a history of seizures, a history of either type of pneumococcal or meningococcal meningitis were excluded. But when Prevnar came to market, the number one target were kids with those conditions. Chronic ear infections, immunodeficiencies, sickle cell, so kids that don't have a spleen. They were the ones who were absolutely advocated to get this vaccine, even though they were never tested in any of the clinical trials against kids who were chronically ill. So I love this. This is my favorite quote. Figures don't lie, but liars do figure. So they can take any statistic they want and twist it around and manipulate it, cut out the kids that had side effects, don't include kids that were sick, never use a true placebo. Use something like a shot of aluminum. That's good enough. So they can really figure it around whatever they want. So what are those takeaways? Safety studies don't prove safety. In fact, the U.S. Supreme Court has actually ruled that vaccinations are unavoidably unsafe. Unavoidably unsafe by the U.S. Supreme Court. The one-size-fits-all vaccination schedule is dangerous and it's unproven, and I think it's a fraud. Every vaccine is different. Every combination in that vaccine is a little bit different, and every time it gets injected into you or your children, there's like 300 people in here. How many different sets of genes do we think we have in here? 300, right? Because you're all came from, even if you have twins, the genetics can be a little bit different. And if you've got 2 or 3 kids, well, think about how they behave at dinner. Do they all behave the same? No. Do you think their genetics are exactly the same? They are not. So every vaccine is different with animal cells, DNA, albumin, everything that's injected. So every vaccine, remember this, every vaccine is a true experiment. It's experimenting with you, what's happening inside of you, and what's happening to your children. Every human being injected with a different genetic constitution. So the takeaway from that section really, no placebo, distorted data, and every vaccine is a true experiment. Isn't this happy? Aren't you celebrating now? Are you learning something new? Yes, good, okay. Are vaccines effective? Well, let me see. Is that really not what we think? Webster's dictionary defines effective as adequate to accomplish a purpose, producing an intended or expected result. Makes sense, doesn't it? Something is going to be effective. And fulfilling a specified function. Well, how does that apply to vaccines? Okay, because are vaccines effective? Well, by that definition, yeah, they really are. Because what is happening when they research vaccinations is they are injecting foreign matter into the body, into the muscle, and at some point in time in the future, weeks, sometimes months later, they take a blood test to see if that foreign matter caused your body to generate an antibody. And if it did, then it fulfilled a specified function. It did what it was supposed to do. It created an antibody. So yes, vaccines are effective from that perspective. But the presence of an antibody doesn't guarantee you from getting an illness. So effective is not a synonym for protective or protection. Remember that. Every time you hear safe and effective, blah, 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 sounds like a robot to me. Safe and effective, safe and effective. It's never been proven to be safe. And effective means that foreign matter was injected into a body and it created an antibody. It doesn't mean it's going to keep you from getting sick. So all this massive push about flu shots that we're going to talk about this afternoon, this whole thing about flu shots, of how it protects you less, if you believe that it works, protects you, it works less than 14% of the time. And we're going to go into that in detail this afternoon. So remember this is an important takeaway. Effective does not mean protection. So here's a couple of examples, okay? In California in 2014, there was a large pertussis outbreak. About 2,000 kids, most between the ages of 14 and 16. 4 were admitted to the hospital for less than 2 days. 1 was admitted for less than 5 days. So essentially, 2,001 cases were treated at home. How deadly is it? How horrible is it? You get a cough for 30 days. It can be worse at night, no fever, but more than 2,000 of those kids were treated at home. So let that sink in for a second. Of those 2006 cases, the full vaccination status was known for about 1,600 of them. 87% were fully vaccinated, which means 2, 4, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years of age, and they had their teen booster. And 87% of those kids got sick anyways. So how effective was that vaccine in terms of being protection against them being sick? And they always blame it all on the unvaccinated, right? It's all those filthy, dirty, little unvaccinated, totally healthy, nothing wrong with them on no medication kids. They're always blamed for these spreading this stuff that they don't have. I mean, how can you share something you don't have? How can you share a pathogen if you don't have it? Right? How can you do that? And of that population, only 36 of the 1,665 were completely unvaccinated. So wait, almost 2,000 were fully vaccinated and they all got sick, and only 36 of those that were unvaccinated got sick. So which were the ones more susceptible? The ones that were vaccinated, right? Were more susceptible. So what about in 2014, there was a big chickenpox outbreak, and 55% of all chickenpox cases between 2005 and 2014, so almost in a 10-year period of time, had at least one dose of chickenpox vaccine, which is an abject failure. They brought the chickenpox vaccine to market in 1995. Why? How many of you guys have had chickenpox? Right. Was it so horrible and deadly? No. So why did they create this chickenpox vaccine and bring it to market in 1995? It actually said in the early studies it was for mommy convenience. Because by 1995, almost entirety of America had dual family income earners. And we can't have mom or dad stay home and miss a week from work to take care of their kid with chickenpox. So if we got rid of chickenpox, then moms wouldn't have to miss work. And think about all the money that we would save society for that. Well, chickenpox only lives in humans. It doesn't have another type of source. And yes, the vaccine did block the transmission of chickenpox. So if you can't perpetuate, if a virus can't be perpetuated by being spread from person to person and you drop it, and you're the only host, well then it stops. It just goes away. So did the chickenpox vaccine work? Was it effective in terms of eliminating chickenpox? Yes, but it's very specific to that, and it had to do with stopping the spreading of it. Now, what was the end result of that? So in 1995, we started with this chickenpox vaccine. By 2004, the incidence rate of shingles had gone up by over 200%. And the cost of shingles to society is somewhere between $87,000 and $110,000 per case if those people with shingles end up in the hospital. And how does that work? Well, if you've had chickenpox as a kid, how you maintain your long-term immunity and keep that virus in check if it's still in your body somewhere is by being exposed to your kids or grandkids that had chickenpox. If your kids had chickenpox and you picked them up or you were around them, your immune system would go, oh yeah, I recognize that. Pump up, be stronger, be resistant. And that's how you maintain long-term immunity to chickenpox. Well, since it's no longer spreading around anymore because the vaccine stopped the spreading around of it, our immunity is waning. And by 1997, 2 years after they had released this vaccine, Dr. Gary Goldman had already said we are going to have to anticipate 50 million people in this country experiencing shingles, including children, because of this vaccine. We need to stop it. The CDC closed their eyes and their ears, fired Gary Goldman, wouldn't have anything else to do with them, because why? They wanted to develop the shingles vaccine, that very expensive vaccine that we give to seniors that causes cardiovascular side effects. May stop 50% of shingles if you're 60 years of age. If you're 70, it's 25%. If you're over 80, it doesn't work at all. But that's the age group that we want to target, the shingles vaccine. So now we're making vaccines to address problems caused by vaccines. Oh, because over here there's this little pop-up thing that says download Adobe. So we'll say, remind me later. Okay, now let's see if this works. Here we go. So repeat after me. Come on. Effective is not protective. Effective is not a synonym for protection. Let me hear it. Effective is not a synonym for protection. One more time. Effective is not a synonym for protection. One more time. Effective is not a synonym for protection. See, 3 times it locks it into your brain, right? So that's why we had to do that. And when so the next time you hear a television commercial with Terry Bradshaw talking about the shingles vaccine, and next time you hear your pediatrician or your doctor say, oh, it's safe and effective, I just want to stuff a sock in their mouth when they say that, man. I just want to take my shoe off and throw it at the TV or something. Well, the next time you hear it, this is what I want you to have running through your head. When foreign matter is injected into a person, an antibody is generated to eliminate that foreign matter. Do I want to risk potential vaccine side effects, which can include death, to develop an antibody that may do nothing to keep me from getting sick? All you guys taking pictures? Take a picture of that one. That's the one you need to remember, okay? That's really important. I'm going to read it one more time. When foreign matter is injected into a person, an antibody is generated to eliminate that foreign matter. Do I want to risk potential vaccine side effects, which can include death, to develop an antibody that may do nothing to keep me from getting sick? One more time. Effective is not a synonym for protection. You guys got it. Good. So here's just a little bit about vaccine ingredients. There's antibiotics. Many of them are very toxic to your kidneys. There are a long list of chemicals. Here's just 2 of them. Here's another whole list of them. There's actually 209 chemicals that are in vaccines. Not one vaccine doesn't have 209, but if you get all the vaccines, you get all the different chemicals. Many of the vaccines still have thimerosal, which is mercury, particularly the multi-dose flu shots that you get from Walgreens and Walmart pharmacy. Those are all multi-dose vials. They all have mercury in them, and if they haven't shaken them every single time, when you get down to the bottom of the vial, you have a much higher concentration of mercury than the person that got the vaccine from the top of the vial. There's all kinds of animal cells, cow cells, chicken cells. If you guys want to sign, I don't know, did that clipboard go around? It's out in the lobby, okay. Out in the lobby to sign up for my website. My website is Vaxxter.com. It's VAXXTER, Vaxxter.com. And I'm writing this entire series called The Disgusting Stuff in Vaccines. And I did the disgusting cow stuff in vaccines, and the disgusting chicken stuff in vaccines, and the disgusting stuff in flu shots. And so I've got these articles written. Right now it's a little bit on pause because I'm working on course content for this course I was telling you about. But you can see with this bovine and chicken stuff that we're going to talk about a little bit later. We've got human cells. We've got cells from aborted fetal tissue that propagate in perpetuity, which are technically cancer cells. So those, we're sitting in a church, right? Do we want to have cells from aborted fetal tissue injected into our body or into the body of our children? And all these, there's 4 different kinds of aluminum. And aluminum has gotten to be a really, really big problem. In fact, I don't know how well you can actually see this, but I put this together because everybody talks about the mercury. Well, mercury's out of most of the vaccines. In fact, if you get every vaccine from birth all the way through 5 years of age, and then teen vaccines, you get a total of 375 micrograms of mercury. 525 micrograms of mercury from birth all the way through 18 years of age. But look how much aluminum you get. 13,535 micrograms of aluminum. Ooh, that's 13 milligrams. That's huge compared to the amount of mercury. So, because everybody's always like, because we've got that in our head about mercury. Well, look at the aluminum. And this is a pediatric schedule for 2017. Look what happens out here at 1 year of age, all of this. So you've primed the pump at 2, 4, and 6 months of age, and then wham, 1 year of age. Is it any wonder that you see this huge uptick of all kinds of conditions, health conditions and autism, starting at 1 year of age? Because that's what's happening at 1 year of age. So, and always follow the money. This is an interesting little thing that came from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. And what it actually says down here, this is something that your doctors know about, And if they follow this rule and they do this combo 10, which means that every one of their children by 2 years of age gets all of these doses, DPT, polio, all of these different things, gets all of these doses, and 63% of the kids in their practice, so if they've got 1,000 kids, 630 of them have to get fully vaccinated, they will get $400 per kid as a bonus from Blue Cross Blue Shield. So if they got 1,000 kids and 630 of them are fully vaccinated, they get the 400 times 1,000. So follow the money. It is about the money. Never, ever think it's about keeping you from getting sick, ever. And what about vaccine side effects? So we're just going to flip through this really quick because these are all the published medical journal types of side effects just from the hepatitis B vaccine: demyelinating disease, hearing loss, neurotoxicity, CNS demyelinization, asthma, vasculitis, autism, liver cancer actually caused by the vaccine. And I just kind of ran out of room. There's more than that. And that's just one vaccine that they give to babies at birth. And what about these stray viruses? Well, let me see. Nearly 100% of commercially available serum from calves is contaminated with bovine viruses. So that's that disgusting cow stuff in the vaccines, right? Bovine sera is used in the following vaccines. Oh, I think I took it out. Actually, the list that's in there is MMR, hepatitis A, almost all of the viral vaccines, polio, they all have bovine serum in them, which means they've got stray viruses from cows. And then there's these two types of viruses that come from eggs that they can't breed out. And so the vaccines that are made from eggs, almost all the flu shots, yellow fever vaccine, are all made from eggs. So then you get all these stray viruses. And this is really important because of how much they pound these flu shots. And those two stray viruses can go in and turn on breast cancer genes. Those two stray viruses can turn on two different genes that, given the right circumstances and the right condition, can turn on those oncogenes that can lead to breast cancer. So why is this all important? It's just disgusting. You know, it's like I'm writing this series that I'm going to turn into a book on the disgusting stuff in vaccines. So why is this important? It's because of this study right here. They took 100 particles of completely benign herpes virus and they put it into a set of mice. All those mice were okay. Then they took 100 particles of viral particle B. So particle A into the mice, everything okay. 100 particles of completely benign herpes virus B. Put it in a second set of mice, they were all okay. And then they took one viral particle of A and one viral particle of B, and they put those into a set of mice, and 62% of them died. And 11 new recombinant viruses were found, which means the particles A and B bred and had babies. And they had 11 new recombinant viruses that they found. And when they took those recombinant viruses, 3 of those recombinant viruses were lethal to the next generation of mice. This is a study that was published in Science in 1986. Yeah. Why is that important? It's because measles, mumps, rubellas, and chickenpox are all live viruses going into a living human being. Flu shots from the flu mist are live viruses going into a living human being. The influenza viruses are attenuated. And when doctors say there's no way you can get a flu shot and get sick from it, I want to laugh in their face. I want to say, can you prove to me that 3.2 billion viruses in that flu shot, that all 3.2 billion of them were actually attenuated and can't cause infection? And you're injecting it into a human body, that when you catch the flu, do you catch the flu because you walked down the street and something was injected into your body? No, you breathe it in through your nose and it goes through this whole big process. Because when we start messing around and adding in all of these individual viral vaccines, we really don't know what the recombinant stuff is going to be. So the conclusion of that study was 2 completely benign viruses may interact in a living being to produce virulent recombinants that can be lethal. What are we doing? Because we want to inject. I think that this, I have a tagline on one of my email addresses. I have 9 email addresses I use for various things. So when you call up and they do that security question thing and they go, what's your email address? I always say, give me another question, because I don't know what email I use to sign up for your thing. And so what are we doing with Mother Nature? What are we doing with injecting all of these things? Like I was saying, I have an email address that the tagline on one of my email addresses says, vaccination, a 200-year mistake. Because if you really go back and look at the smallpox literature and see how they developed the smallpox vaccine, it was a ruse. And the same thing with diphtheria, which came out in 1920, and tetanus that came out in 1930, and pertussis that came out in 1942. It was a joke, man. When you see those graphs of how far away all the infection ever was before they introduced the vaccine to begin with. It is a multi-generational indoctrination that we have, that we're working against, that I'm working against, that I know Patrick works against, and other people, maybe some of you who are big-time activists in your community. It's a multi-generational indoctrination, not based on fact, but based on the fact that if you say it over and over and over and over again, if you say it enough times, people will believe it's true. So what does all that mean? Well, we're mixing all these cows and chicken things together. We got flu shots that are now being grown in dog kidney cells, monkey cells, and insect cells. So now if you get that new flu block vaccine, it's made from insect cells. You're getting a little bit of insect DNA injected into your body, and it actually says that on the package insert. Is this animal DNA being incorporated into the human genome that we aren't even really aware of? We're seeing it in our office. We see these fully, because the hepatitis B vaccine started at birth in 1991. So if your kids were born from 1991 or older, they probably got it unless you were smart enough or wise enough or educated enough to say, no, I don't want them to have it. So those children are now 26 years of age, and they're starting to have children. And sometimes we see a fully vaccinated mom that you ask their history. Yeah, they've got all the vaccines when they were a kid. Dad, same thing. Now we put together that egg and that zygote together to make a new baby, and now both of them are saying, we're 100% organic, we're not vaccinating, we do everything that we can to keep our household clean, we get rid of all of our household chemicals that were nasty, but their kids are sick. And they've never had a vaccine. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, and why I keep doing this is because I believe that we are in the last generation of healthy children. The ones that are being born now of parents who were vaccinated at 1991. And what's going to happen if we continue, now we take those kids and we give them the 209 vaccine antigens and the 55 vaccines by the time they're 18 years of age to crush their genetics and incorporate all these viruses in there. Are we to the next generation after babies that are born now, when they grow up and have kids, that our genome as a humanity on this planet has been so corrupted by this evil stuff that's being injected? It's an abomination. The Bible actually even talks about vaccination being an abomination. And the St. Germain's tests talk about it a lot, about the foul injection of these things into the human body to contaminate the pure human body with these foul injections is an abomination. We're going to keep doing this? When are we going to stop? Don't you think that by 2017, we could have come up with a cleaner, healthier, more efficacious way to keep children from becoming seriously sick than by injecting them with stuff that's probably going to make them sick? When are we going to break through people's psyche and get them to stop? Only when all of you guys get activated and start knowing what's coming through that needle and how it's not helping you, it's harming you, and standing up against the guy or gal in the white jacket who's just another human being. They're just parroting what they've been taught. It's when you go see your doctor, it should be an adult-to-adult conversation, not a parent-child conversation. And if they want to kick you out of your practice, celebrate. It's probably the best thing you can happen to your kids. So key points to remember. Mercury is not out of all the vaccines. Aluminum, 13,535 micrograms by 18 years in age. We've got animal and human cells. We have no true placebo for safety. Protective is not a synonym for, or effective is not a synonym for protection. We've got injection of foreign matter into human beings that have cows and chickens and insects, and somehow that's supposed to magically keep you from getting sick? I don't think so. So what do you do instead? Well, you guys are all, part of the Wellness Way program here, so you guys all know all of this. Drink plenty of purified water, get lots of rest, exercise regularly. Every single step counts. Don't go to the mall and drive around till you can find the closest parking place. Park far away because every single step counts. Eat really good food, take great supplements, stock up on homeopathic vitamin D, lower stress level with meditation, get regular chiropractic treatments because the whole principle behind chiropractic is stimulating your immune system, so health is an inside-out phenomenon. I mean, we swim in bugs and bacteria and viruses all the time. How many of you think are on that chair you're sitting on right now? On the carpet. Bugs, right? But I don't see anybody walking out there to go to their car and keeling over because they've been exposed, because everybody is exposed. But where does resistance come from? It's an inside-out phenomenon. It's what happens inside of the food you're taking, how well your chiropractic adjustments are doing, the type of water that you eat or drink, the type of food that you eat that keeps you healthy from the inside out. It's about your spirituality. I mean, your maker didn't make this baby be born and go, I forgot the immune system. Hurry, vaccinate. Right? I actually saw a cartoon like that, and I thought it was pretty funny. It was this mom and dad standing there with this little baby, and there was this picture of God up here looking down and going, I forgot the immune system. Hurry up and vaccinate. Because that's what we do. That's what we do. But now you can go forth and do different, right? Now that you can't blame yourself or beat yourself up or feel horrible about what you didn't know. If you don't know what you don't know, you did the best you could at the time, making the assumption that the doctor knew when the doctor doesn't have a clue. But now that you know, once you know what you know, you can't unknow it, right? And effective is not a synonym for protection. And they don't use a placebo. And there's all this contaminated junk that's in there. So are vaccines safe? One more time? Okay. Are vaccines effective? Do they keep you from getting sick? No, it's not protection. Do vaccines have very few side effects? No. Billions of dollars paid out in the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, and that's only 10%. And this is why California, West Virginia, and Mississippi, and Italy and France and Germany mandates are so dangerous. And you guys live in Wisconsin. You have a philosophical exemption, just like what we have in Ohio. So this whole thing about you have to vaccinate to go to school, it's like you just want to put that sock in their mouth, man. I could say nastier things, but I'm in church. So don't do that. But all you have to do is say no. I know in the state of Ohio, what's required in the state of Ohio is that the public health department, if they do an audit on the school has to provide either a completed vaccination schedule or a written letter from the parents that says, we philosophically refuse. Sign your name and put it in the file. Now, schools can vary. Some schools want it notarized. Some schools want the letter every year. Some schools want both parents to sign. Some schools, that letter can apply through K through 6, and then you write another one for middle school and do another one for high school. But the law is the law. And even if it's a private school, they're licensed by the state, they have to follow the law. The same thing with daycares. If they are licensed by the state, which they all are, they can't hang out a shingle, they have to follow the law. I want to really empower everyone sitting here to don't be bullied by the healthcare industry. Don't be bullied by the school nurses. Don't be bullied by somebody who tells you something that just to do something against your will for yourself and your children. Just don't do it. So in closing, I love this. Orthodox medicine is worse than the tax man. Not only can they take your money, it can be fatal. Vaccines are not benign. They're not safe. They don't protect you. They can cause all terms of long-term health problems. There are so many other options that are available for you to stay healthy and keep well, because why? Health is an inside-out phenomenon. And think about all those little cooties and bugs you're sitting on right now. If you're healthy from the inside out, it doesn't really matter. And don't give up. Don't get discouraged. Every child and adult who refuses vaccines and chooses to stay well by natural means, including good quality chiropractic, it's a victory over the pharmaceutical industry. Woohoo! So no matter what you've done in the past, go forward with different knowledge and different information. This afternoon, we're going to talk about those nasty flu shots. But this is sort of an overview of what the basic premises are of the pharmaceutical industry. And if you want to get hold of me, and there's a sign out there, there's a sign up out there, I hope that you guys will all sign up for my email list. And by signing that document, you are allowing me to enter you into my email list. Write it so I can read it. If you are interested in my course, it's called the Mastering Vaccine Info Foundational Course and Online Training. It's 20 modules that goes through every single thing in detail. You get a presentation every Monday that you can watch at your own time, and every Thursday night we have a Facebook discussion group, because what we are creating is confident parents, intelligent leaders, and articulate activists. The course is currently closed, but it will open again in March. And if you go to the masteringvaccineinfo.com site, you can sign up for our waiting list. So that's it. Did you guys learn something from that? Was that good? Not exactly happy, but educational, and I hopefully proactive for everything you want to do. And this afternoon, we'll be talking a lot more about the flu shot. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your attention.
Let's put our hands together one more time for Dr. Sherri Tenpenny.